The belief, I am not lovable, corresponds with a reality of not experiencing love. So, as with all beliefs, you have a chicken and egg dynamic. So we have the belief, I'm not lovable. We have the experience of not being loved. And in an egocentric culture, this is all about I. So we also see that the experience of an individual not being loved correlates with a cultural phenomena of not being able to love that individual. So in order for any part of a culture to not be loved, the culture must be incapable of loving that part of itself. In order for any part of us, so this is the kind of sideways spiral, in order for any one of us not to feel loved, for some part of us, we must be unable to love that part. So I am unlovable, whether that is a part of us. Let's say it is the part of us that is angry and depressed. There's a part of us. How do you feel part? Well, I feel angry and depressed. Well, what part are you? Well, I'm 3 years old. And why do you feel angry and depressed? Well, every time I want to have my diaper changed, I want this, whatever, I'm told, not now, not now, not now. So what feeling loved would look like is having my diaper changed. And what I'm experiencing is no one in the entire planet is available to change my diaper. Otherwise, obviously, my diaper would be changed. So I'm feeling depressed. It's not going to change. It's pointless. My diaper, and of course, time is very big for a 3-year-old. So, it's not working. Nothing I do. I tried going in this side of the room. I tried going to that side of the room. I tried nagging, I tried screaming, it's pointless, it's hopeless, it's pointless, it's hopeless, etc. And it's going on for a very long time for a 3-year-old's mind. And I am unlovable because being loved equals changing my diaper. And no one in the entire planet, it's been going on forever, a long time, hours and hours, day after day, the same thing for this big window of time, an eternity for a 3-year-old. The neighbors aren't changing my diapers. The Greeks aren't changing my diapers. The future, they're not changing the diapers. The past, no one in any culture, in any present throughout time is changing my diapers. Therefore, says the three-year-old, therefore, I must not be lovable. It's not happening. Therefore, now a child, of course, is in the self-centered stage of maturation, and so everything is about me. And so, it's a 3-year-old doesn't say, therefore, the world is busy, or therefore the culture doesn't prioritize children. No, the child says, I am unlovable. I am unloved. I am unloved. Therefore, I am unlovable. And that completes that particular loop. So I am depressed and angry about that because it's pointless, because it's hopeless, because I'm unlovable, because that's the end. That is, this not looking good for the future, right? So I'm depressed, I'm irritable, I'm angry. So, but now we have a new problem. When I'm depressed, when I'm irritable, and when I'm angry, nobody loves me. They don't want to listen to my anger. They don't want to deal with my depression. They don't want to. Nobody says, why are you depressed and angry? And tell me all about it. And, oh, that's very interesting. And what could we do about this? And no, they say, stop being so negative. Stop it. Stop being. Well, how can I feel loved if I'm not existing? If the idea, if the culture's remedy to me feeling unlovable and being angry and depressed about that is not to exist, well, that doesn't sound very loving, does it? Just die, kill myself, hide, bury, etc. So it's not a very good. So first, I feel unlovable and unloved with my diaper not being changed. But now I feel unloved and unlovable because I feel angry and depressed around that thought. It's never going to change. This is going on for a long time. I feel that way. And nobody wants to deal with the feeling. No one wants to respond to the feeling. My mother certainly doesn't want to hear about the feeling. My father doesn't want to hear about the feeling. My brothers don't want to hear about the feeling. The neighbors don't. No one. And they say, well, God loves you. Well, where is he? Why didn't he change my diaper, right? The angels and this. Where are they? Why aren't they here, right? So nobody, nothing, no one loves me. And then when a child confirms that I'm unlovable, usually the child can't love themselves. So I'm unlovable because I'm unloved, and I'm self-centered, so it's all about me. I don't say my parents are unloving in this area at this time, because love is a continuum. It's a gradient, and in this area at this time, my parents get a 1. In this other area, they get a 2. They get a 3 over here. Then they're very loving over here for 10 minutes, and then they stop being very loving, and that moment is over. And so in this bell curve of reality of felt experience, the people around me are doing whatever they're doing. That's not really that much to do with me, but I feel unlovable because I'm self-absorbed, and rather than understanding that people are in varying abilities and in varying willingnesses. So someone may be very able to love me. They could change my diaper. They just don't love me enough to understand how uncomfortable it is. They're not willing to understand how uncomfortable it is. When they see me screaming or pouting or this, they put me in another room or threaten me, because they're also self-centered, right? They didn't grow up into adults. They're living in giant bodies, but they're also self-centered. They're also fear-based. This didn't happen, that didn't happen, because and they're scared. Maybe about any number of things. But in that self-absorbed state, they're not empathizing with me. So they're either unable or they're unwilling. And of course, there is a convergent point between unable and unwilling. Because if you're unwilling to become able, then there's an unwillingness. And if you are unable to be willing, there's an inability. So this inability and willingness, you look at things like physically, you've got a car, you could go to the grocery store and do this errand for me. And if you did this errand, I would feel pleasure, I would feel safer, I would feel like I was more important. And these things would help me to feel grateful and open up, and I would feel more loved. But you didn't do it. You're not doing it. You've got the car, you've got the keys, you've got a working body, but you're unwilling to do it, right? Well, at some point, those two, the inability and the unwillingness, become one, because what is the inability to become willing? you've got a psychological thing. Maybe you've got, an inability to create the energy in your body. I feel so tired. Yes, the car could do it, but I'm not able to feel the energy, or I'm not able to transcend my resentment about the fact that you could make me feel really loved. You could give me a blowjob. You could weed the garden. You could do this. You could do that. You could clean the house. You could do this other thing for me. You could help me do this errand that I want done. But you don't want to do that. Are you unable? Are you unwilling? And why should I, feeling unloved, feeling tired, why should I go and make you feel loved when I don't feel loved myself? Which comes back to an inability and an unwillingness to love myself, right? I don't like myself. Does that feel good? No, it doesn't. Okay. Do you have the ability to like yourself? I don't know how to do that. I look at that and I think that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. I don't like that. Okay. Do you have the ability to change the things that you don't like? I don't want to. No one's going to tell me what to do. You have the willingness to change the parts. Or do you have a willingness to love the parts you don't like? No, I don't. I don't like those parts. And I don't want to like those parts. I hate those parts. So you don't have the willingness to like the parts that want to be liked. So the parts that want to be liked, the lazy part, the part that's goofy, the part that isn't very prepared, the part that enjoyed staying up watching cartoons and then missed the job interview. You don't like that part. You don't want to like that part, but that part wants to be liked. You don't want to like it. So it feels unloved because you have an inability and an unwillingness to love those parts. So there's this, in the self-centered state of the child, this is all about us, right? This, we are unlovable. We are unloving. We're unloving. We're unlovable. It's all our fault. In a sociopathic paradigm, of course, we deserve to be punished. I'm trying to figure out. We deserve to be punished for being unlovable, right? We did something bad. We deserve to be punished. How could you love something that deserves to be punished? So within the understanding of the fractal paradigm of psyche, of cult, of family, of individual, what we see is that the culture is a fractal piece of the species, and the family is a fractal piece of the culture, and the individual is a fractal piece of the family. So we're talking about one essential program, one algorithm that just replicates at smaller and smaller level. And then the individual conversation, the inner dialogue inside, is the fractal conversation of the family and the person as well. So it's all one conversation. Within each individual, there are a variety of archetypal energies, of personas, of identities, of patterns of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being that are in a dialogue with one another. There's a lazy part in each individual, and the lazy part is saying, I don't want to do that. And then there's a parental part that says, you have to do that, right? You have to do that. I don't want to do that. You have to do that. And then there's a part that says, why can't it be all about me? And then there's another part that says, don't be so selfish. It's not all about you. It can't be all about you. Think of other people, right? So that's a dialogue, right? And then I want this. I want this. You can't have that. You're a bad person, or you can't have that. You didn't earn it. Or go out and get a job, right? Says the critical parent or the constructive mentor. Go out and create it. I don't want to do that. Well, go do it anyway, right? So these are dialogues. These are dialogues that exist in every portion of the species to one degree or another. And and then you have different parts of the self that are constructive and intelligent, and you have different parts of a community that are constructive and intelligent. You have different parts of a family that are constructive and intelligent. You have different parts of the species that are constructive and intelligent, and you have other parts that are stupid and are unloved and unloving. But the thing that's important to understand is through the lens of the individual, because there's also parts of the cult, parts of the psyche, that focus all on the individual. It's all about you. So the child and the adolescent, it's all about me, it's all about you, because you're myopic, right? If you were to take this whole range of, and look at millions and billions of people out here, and we narrow the range, and we focus down to the level of the individual to where all we can see is one person, then the only question is, I can only see one because I've got a narrow zoom, right? My lens is very tiny. I just fit one person in this lens. It's a tiny lens. Now I can turn it to me and say, this is me and that's you, right? So now you have an either-or paradigm. When you have a tiny lens like that, that's the lens of a child. It's all about me, or it's all about you. That's the tiny lens. But of course, it's not all about us. It is about us. It's not all about you. It's about us. Why? Well, why is it that there's a single mother with 2 children and no one to help her work and change a kid's diaper? Why is that going on? Does this have anything to do with the kid? Why is it that there's no government support for single parents? Why is it that the culture is so focused on freedom? Because why did the guy leave, right? Why did the guy leave? Why is there a single mom with 2 kids having to also work, thus creating the experience for the child that they're unlovable because it's all about them, because she doesn't have time to change 2 diapers and operate a phone call? Why is that happening? What does that have to do with the kid? Well, this is free market capitalism. This is about freedom. We can't force people to stay married. We've got to have people have their freedom, right? And after having 2 kids and a loud house and all that, the guy exercised his freedom to spend time with a younger woman who didn't have kids. Now, and of course, in a few years, she'll be older too, and there'll be a couple of kids there too, because he needs his freedom not to have a condom, right? Because it has to be free, right? Well, where did this idea of freedom get elevated? The land of the free, the home of the brave, right? Where did freedom get to be elevated to such a high level? Well, personal satisfaction and where did that come from? Who came up with that? Well, marketers. You've got to enjoy your life. Forget about other people. Buy Gucci, do this. See, because if a marketer can come up with an algorithm that sells a product then they can make more money, right? And their company will hire them again because their job is to market something. So if someone has the bright idea that marketing personal freedom is what helps them keep their job, then they market personal freedom. Freedom, be free, buy our product, be free, buy our product, be free, and buy our product. That's what life's all about. And our product can help you have a free life. Well, the other companies are watching and saying, my goodness, Gucci is selling a lot of handbags. Maybe we should sell. Be free, buy a Porsche. Be free, the open road, buy a Porsche. Be free, buy a Porsche. Be free. Another product jump on like, yes, be free, be free. We're all about freedom too. And in a psychologically illiterate culture, now where did that come about? Well, we didn't think about it. We're chauvinists. We didn't understand that the psyche is important to cultivate and honor. In a psychologically illiterate culture, where does your psychological education come from? Well, it comes from the media. And who pays for the media? The advertisers. So your education comes from advertisers. And how do the advertisers decide what they're going to do as a message? Well, they figure out what's going to help them sell more products. They don't figure out what's good for the culture. They don't figure out what's good for you or your family or your children. They figure out what's good for the economy. Well, who came up with the economy? Well, capitalists. They wanted to turn $1 into $2, and so they came up with the capitalist economy. What does this all have to do with this 5-year-old whose diapers isn't changing? Well, nothing, nothing to do with him at all. But that 5-year-old feels unlovable because one has to follow one's freedom, right? I mean, we heard it on this advertisement. We heard it on that advertisement. We saw it in this movie and that movie. And how could you fault me? I copied what my advertisers told me. And I exercised my freedom to abandon my children and my wife. And we all watched 10,000 Things saying that's the thing to do, right? And so I am a free person, and I'm proud of it, right? And all the advertisers say, you should be. Now buy our product, right? So what does giving the cultural education kind of licensing agreement to the advertisers that want to sell products to people, whether they need them or not, what does that have to do with a 5-year-old who doesn't feel loved? Nothing. That is a low level of competency at a cultural level. Let's see, we could figure out what would be best for people and teach them that. Nah. We could pay for our media in a public trust and really look at the data and see what leads to a cohesive, sustainable culture. Nah, we're too cheap. I know, let's let advertisers tell our children and our culture what's important, and we'll just do whatever the most images tell us will make us happy. So we'll have all these things that don't make us happy, and then we'll put images of happy, smiling people next to them to confuse the brain, and that's how we'll raise our children. How about that? No objections. Okay, well, we're going to make lots of money, so we vote for that. Good. Let's buy the votes in Congress. Of course, people will be too busy buying all those products and saving up money for all those products to be able to read the bill and all that. But we'll write it and structure it. So That's just a very low level of intelligence in the culture that leads to this great meme of whatever it is, that leads to more and more ruptured families, despite the data that this is not very good for children. And then a 5-year-old who cannot process the level of incompetence and stupidity of their parents and the culture around them looks at this and says, I'm bad. I must be horribly bad, because if I wasn't bad, why would nobody in the entire planet understand how horrible this feels and do something to let me feel important, let me feel loved? So we see the symmetry of I'm unlovable with the culture is unloving. And we see the correlation between the culture being unloving of itself to the culture being unloving of us, right? And if the culture is unloving of itself, like let's let advertisers guide the generation, it's not very loving, it's not very intelligent. You know, put the most manipulative sociopathic minds in the country in charge of cultural education based solely on financial rewards by brain hacking all of people in a vulnerable state so that they can get stock options. That's brilliant. You know, it's brilliant at a sociopathic level. It's just not brilliant at a cultural level. It's not brilliant at an intelligent level, because being sociopathic isn't as intelligent as being empathic. Because sociopathic behavior leads to pain and is incapable of generating love. Being a sociopath is not as much fun as being a human being. Because a human being, what makes you a human being, is your ability to love and receive love, to give and receive love. So elevating reptiles to high status because of their ability to manipulate large numbers of people out of fear, shame, greed, and biology, to buy things that they don't need and want, it's just not very intelligent. It's not very kind. It's not very loving. It's not very fun. And it has nothing to do with that 5-year-old. But the 5-year-old is the one in the immature state that believes that it's all about them. So you have the belief, I am unlovable, that correlates with the reality that I'm not being loved. You have that correlation. It's not about the person. Now, when we are part of a culture together, it's our meme, meaning in any dynamic, there is the initiator in the masculine role, there is the receiver in the feminine role, and there is the witness, the vast majority of people who allow the dynamic. So you have the dynamic, the giver, the receiver, and the witness. So around this dynamic is every one of us. We're all part of the circle. We're the witness of the dynamic. We watch another generation go up, and we either intervene in the dynamic and interrupt it and edit it, or we witness it passively and say, yeah, none of my business, right? So where did this idea that it's none of my business come in? Who came up with that? Who came up with the idea that you can abuse your child because it's none of my business? you can abuse your employee because I'm a sociopath. And that person has nothing to do with me. I'm not empathic, like, wow, that's a human being being hurt. How could we help? No, I'm a sociopath that says, no. I have my little box here. And if it fits in my little box, then that's me. But if it doesn't, it's not my business. So here's my little box, and it's outside of my box. So you're in pain, and I'm not going to do anything about it because I'm a reptile. Sociopaths do not do anything out of anything other than greed and fear. I mean, that is the reptilian program. And I'm not afraid of that. It doesn't help my greed, so I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to do this little box. So the belief that I'm unlovable often leads to imagination and expectation of being hurt and rejected again, which often cues other people into the script because we're projecting now. We were given a message that we were unlovable by the cult. Now we've believed the message, I'm unlovable. It wasn't personal, but we believe it anyway. And now we're projecting the image, I am unlovable. And now the cult is believing us. It's very common in a psychologically illiterate cult for people to just take however someone is treating themselves and treat them that way. Someone says, I'm really dumb and stupid and tries to convince us that we're dumb and stupid. We just say, oh, fine, you're dumb and stupid, and that's fine. You win. That's what we'll treat you. If someone says, I'm really important in this and that, and I'm going to get a Rolls Royce just to show how that, and we usually treat them as if they're really important because that's their projection out, and we just copy it. We don't say, hey, where did you get this crazy idea that to be important you needed a Rolls Royce? Well, advertising, of course. You saw all the important people on TV having a Rolls Royce. I wanted to be important, and so I had to get a Rolls Royce. It must be hard to park it, right? It's a big thing, this and that and all this. Yeah, it's very annoying, right? But had to be important, right? Well, why did you have to be important? Well, I felt very small, and I hated that feeling. I felt unlovable, right? And so I have to feel lovable, and so I have to do this and do that. So it becomes a loop then. I believe I'm unlovable, and so I treat myself in unloving ways. And in a psychologically weak culture, there's no courage and initiative of I'm going to treat you the way I want to treat you. You just copy the status quo. You look at the norms and you do what everyone else is doing. How is it that in America you can walk by homeless people for 10 years? Tens of thousands of people walk by homeless people and they just stay there. How is that? Well, everyone else is doing it. It's weak, isn't it? It's not like what would be the intelligent response here. It's like, I guess that's the accepted norm. In Germany, it was murdering Jews. Now it's murdering homeless people. A homeless person loses at least 6 hours of life, according to some of the statistics, for being chronically homeless. So every day we walk by one and do nothing about it. 6 hours of their life went by in 24 hours, and they didn't care enough to do anything about it. And neither did anyone else. It's not very personal, is it? They got the message, you're not worth it, from 10,000 people who drove by. They believed the message, so they didn't change it, and nobody else did either. And so we have an unlovable faction, a faction that isn't being loved by the person who's homeless in some cases and many of the people who go by. It's not loving to be homeless. So where's it coming from? And we're just too unwilling or too unable to love that demographic effectively. just like we're too unwilling, unable to love some part of ourself. There are homeless parts of the self. There are parts of us that want to talk, want to be seen, want to be loved, and every single time they come up, there's no home for you, there's no home for you, there's no home for you. Go away, we don't have time for this, we don't have time for that. You can't play anymore, you can't, that's not the thing, you're an adult, you're this. There are homeless parts of each one of us that we're unable and unwilling to love. So, a little bit of awareness around this belief, I am unlovable. Flip it around. The world is unable and unwilling to love me. Flip it around. I am unable and unwilling to love myself. And that's the riddle. If I am unable and unwilling to love myself because I copy the world that is unable and unwilling to love me, and if the world is unable and unwilling to love me because it's copying me, because I am unable and unwilling to love myself. See, because if I was willing and able to love myself, I got myself in great shape, I felt great, I learned how to express myself powerfully, I entertained and brought well-being to people, well, then the world knows how to love that. The world doesn't know how to love the part that doesn't know how to love itself. The world knows how to love popular, creative, happy, entertaining people. The world knows how to love those people who know how to love themselves. The world doesn't know how to love the people who don't know how to love themselves, and the people who don't know how to love themselves don't know how to love themselves because the world doesn't know how to love them, right? So it's a loop. And the question is, who's going to give in first? And who's going to figure out how to love the people that do not know how to love themselves because they haven't been loved in the child and adolescent narcissistic states of self-absorption? It's all about them. Who's going to learn to love them? That's the question. Are people going to figure out how to become people that the world knows how to love faster than the world is going to figure out how to love people who don't know how to love themselves into the places that the cult knows how to love, right? But it is our issue. It's not their issue. It's our issue. We can learn to love more of ourself, and more of ourself can learn how to be loved. We can learn how to love more of the people around us, and the people around us can learn to love more of the people in us who feel unloved and unlovable. It can exit at any point, and then the belief collapses. Because as soon as any person, anyone in the world, figures out how to deeply love a part inside, a part outside a child, as soon as one person figures out to love the person who is not being loved, inside or out, the belief shifts. Because as soon as someone is loved, if they're a narcissist and a child, every child is a narcissist, every adolescent is a narcissist, if they're all self-absorbed, if you love a child, then the child says, I'm lovable. The belief, there it is. I'm lovable. And now we'll act consistent with that belief. It's all about them and all that. And then the culture knows how to love that person. It just takes one person to love that child, to form that belief that I am lovable. And what about the parts inside? I feel so unlovable and so unworthy, and then the parts that I feel angry about that and lonely about that, and then nobody loves those parts, and those are unlovable too. It's an endless loop, right? As soon as some part of me figures out how to love that part of me, then that part is loved. My anger is loved. I understand it. I accept it. I'm bitter. I'm angry about this and I feel loved. I feel heard and I feel loved. And as soon as the attention is given to the diaper or whatever, then that 3-year-old feels loved. Whether it's a regression in a meditation or holding them in their pain and grief until they feel, Now I'm loved. The dynamic is healed. The suffering is healed. It just takes one person, one part of the self, one part of the family, one part of the cult to bring competence, willingness, to bring survival, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, development of abilities, bringing those abilities into the world and becoming part of something bigger. Once that happens, we love ourselves, we feel loved. There's no more belief in unlovability. Hi, I'm Dane Rose. All knowledge begins with a paradigm, and out of that paradigm comes an idea, an awareness that we adopt, reject, or synthesize into something better. It doesn't become wisdom, it doesn't become useful until we take action, until we integrate it into not only our thoughts, but our feelings, our body, our words, and our way of being. For that to occur, we have to move from the passive media paradigm into more active engagement. In the link below, in the More Information section, is an invitation to join a very small, deliberately filtered, high-quality discussion with a group of people who share a common language and want to work with these ideas, with me and with one another, with the sole goal of creating 10 times more sustainable well-being for ourselves and those around us per unit of energy invested. Thank you for watching.